Hello, hello, Misfits. What's going on? My name is Strifium, and welcome back to another Misfits Racing League Thursday. Of course, today we have none other than my home Grand Prix. It is the Canadian Grand Prix, and joining me, Unicorn. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Striff. It's always good to be here. And we had a fun race on Tuesday, and it's looking like we're going to have another fun one here this evening. A nice full grid, ready and waiting to entertain us this evening.
Yes, of course, we saw the MRL EU grid take to the circuit on Tuesday for a very exciting race. Not only that, but we had the opportunity, I had the opportunity to see the Oceanic grid. The new Oceanic grid on circuit today around Canada with a very clean race. Not a safety car, VSC to C. 18 drivers, 17 finished the race, and the last driver retired on the penultimate lap. So it was pretty much 18 drivers the whole way through. So very exciting stuff. Hoping to see something similar from Tier 2 and Tier 1 today. Let's take a look at the circuit. Of course, Canada here in the man-made, on the man-made island of Notre Dame in Montreal. Of course, in the province of Quebec in Canada. And of course, it's a fantastic circuit. It's a lovely circuit. And if you've watched any of the races around there in reality, I'm sure you'll see some fantastic racing. Of course, our drivers have already gone through Australia, Bahrain, Vietnam, China, the Netherlands, Spain, Monaco, as well as most recently through in Baku, of course, for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. What a week of racing it was. Now, here for Canada with the second official race of the week. Of course, Tier 1 coming up later. And then next week we move into France, and then we finish out the first half of this season with, of course, the very fast circuit of Austria. Then we go into, the end of the calendar that I'd like to say is a lot more fun. Maybe not as, maybe a little bit looser for these drivers, a little bit more experimental, able to do a little bit more risk-taking. Not too sure. We'll have to see. But of course, it's going to be Britain, Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, then Russia, Japan, the US, Mexico, Brazil, and then, of course, wrapping things up in Abu Dhabi. The great thing with Abu Dhabi in this calendar, of course, is that it is following along with the calendar that we would have seen the Formula One racers performed this season. Of course, we have the now modified calendar. But of course, let's take a look at the teams here on the grid for Tier 2 today. We have Kai Bacchini back after serving his his race ban last week. So he is back. He's racing over at Mercedes. He has a teammate in a reserve role for Jay today. It's going to be Dirk Chocolate, A2K and Yasko for Ferrari, Gadwin and Liam over at Red Bull. Skybits and Little Bear over at McLaren with Ali Afchi. That's Undertaker with him over at Renault. Adrian and Wisp for AlphaTauri, Robbo and Itzamax for Racing Point. I do believe Itzamax may or may not have stepped down. Of course, we'll have to see once we get into the race. Maxim and Extreme 1409 for Alfa Romeo, Crampy and Max Inkster for Haas, with Domi and Squid over at Williams. Of course, with this, I will say there has been a few last-minute changes to the teams, I think, heading into this race. This isn't 100% entirely correct, but we'll have to see once we get in there. Now, with all of that being said and done, one thing I can say for certain that is correct is the standings here for Tier 2. Liam, the reigning Tier 2 champion, still reigning ahead now, as he has jumped onto lead of the championship. He is 86 points over there for Red Bull. Domi in second, and that's Kai after his race ban. He's dropped down to third with his teammate Jay right behind him. So we'll have to see how they do throughout this race. Of course, Mercedes is first in the Constructors' Championship. Interesting note with Kai, he is going to be serving a qualifying ban for this race as a result of carrying over penalty points. One other thing, steward report following Baku, no position changes to note. However, multiple racers with penalty points applied. So keep it clean, guys. Those penalty points are starting to rack up. And with all of that being said, Unicorn, I think we are just about ready to go racing here in Canada.
Yeah, I think we are. And like I said, full grid this evening, which is what we love to see in Canada. A great track. Obviously, I know you love it for maybe other reasons other than just the track itself, but still an absolutely brilliant track, and I think we're going to have a cracking race there this evening, or two, as it were.
Yes, of course, we're going to jump into 18 minutes of qualifying. We're going to have a dynamic roll of the dice for the weather, of course, and I can't wait to see what that turns out to be. And of course, grab your friends, share the link around, and get your friends in here to watch a fantastic Canadian Grand Prix, because guess what? unfortunately, we don't get to see one on the real calendar this year, Unicorn. And considering how those Grand Prix have gone previously, well, you never know.
Yeah, I know. A wet race around Canada. Definitely an exciting prospect if you get it. So, although it doesn't look like there's a cloud in sight, as I've just loaded into the lobby here, so possibly not this evening. Definitely not for qualifying anyway.
Very sunny. Very sunny. Not a cloud in the sky. That was how it was for the Oceanic practice earlier. And I'll talk a little bit about that before I go through this grid. 18 drivers from the Oceanic grid. If you didn't know, October 1st is the first official round for the new grid. And what a grid it was. We had a fantastic showing. 18 drivers today. A couple guys couldn't make it. But it looks like it's going to be a fantastic season for the Oceanic grid, and I can't wait to take a look and see how that goes. Of course, we're talking here now at the present. We're talking about Tier 2 racing. And while all these drivers get things dialed in and get out of this pit lane, we have Maxim B, It's a Max, Undertaker F, Kai Bacchini, Extreme with Adrian, A-Lord, Domi, Dirk Chocolate, Cotters, Liam, Wisp, Gadwin, that's Crampy, Max Inkster, as well as Lamp, Squid, Yasko, Houdini, and Little Bear here on the grid today for Tier 2 action. Now, one thing to note, Crampy repping a very interesting tag on stream today, and I'll take note of it. Pepega, which I do believe is his team name for the upcoming Dirk Chocolate Choco Grand Prix event. Of course, check out Dirk Chocolate on Twitch if you're looking for info on that. Now, that's an event coming up this coming Saturday, the 26th, that I'll just give a quick plug to, that I will be commentating with Dirk Chocolate. And it's a fantastic, fun little tournament-style event happening on Saturday the 26th. So if you guys feel like checking it out, we'll be on over there.
Yeah, and Dirk reserving in this race as well, so he can represent himself a little bit. The tagline will be there the entire time. But it is Cotters in the racing point. First out of the pit lane and onto the track, coming around that turn 10 hairpin in the racing point.
Now, saw Racing Point win this race on Tuesday. That was Filipic, the reserve driver, the Croatian, coming across to take the checkered flag. He was driving Stroll's car as well, so a little bit of a play on the national driver. Of course, we have Latifi now as well over at Williams for Canada. Cotters, though, coming through turn 2, trying to stick with that inside curbing on the exit. Good on the traction, can be real shaky coming out of turn 2 there. Now we come into this first major chicane, that's 3 and 4. And then you're going to tap through this right-hander. This is turn 5. Then you're going to come into the second major chicane here. You have a left-right. This is 6 and 7. Coming down this straight, you're going to hit the third chicane, 8, 9, and this is when it's tricky because the traction on exit can be really shaky here. And we saw the two drivers on Tuesday, Unicorn, the two Haas drivers go into that left-hand wall on exit. Now we come down into turn 10. This is the hairpin. Just as we come up to this inside curbing, this is 11. Then we get through the DRS line here. This is turn 12. Onto the Casino Straight. We head into one of the most iconic sections of circuit in Formula One, the 13-14 chicane, the Wall of Champions. And you can see Cotters brushing that wall on exit. What's the time going to be? It's a 1:10.9, and behind him, it's Max Inkster in the Haas, a 1:10 flat.
Yeah, like you were saying, a racing point with a reserve driver at the helm won this race on Tuesday. Can Cotters keep that rolling? As Squid, a 109.1 from the Williams. And Maxime B following suit with another 109.1. 0.02 of a second off of Squid's time there. So nice and tight at the top at the moment. Undertaker, a 110.5 on mediums, and Gadwin as well, a 109.5 on the medium tyres. So Gadwin looking pretty strong on the harder compound tyres as his teammate Liam, a 108.3, puts himself at the top of this timing tower.
Those bulls are charging here in Canada today. Liam, 108.3. Looks like he's a cut above right now the rest of these drivers. That is a fantastic time from
The
him.
Ferrari of Lamp is in the wall and has just caused a collision with Crampy, it would seem. Both cars still in the session, but Crampy has suffered some damage from that. I think he lost a lot of his front wing, if not his entire front wing. And Lamp has taken a 5-place grid penalty as a result there.
Very, very odd. Not entirely sure what caused it. Of course, stewards will have to take a look should there be any reports as a result. Little Bear now in the McLaren, yet to set a lap time. He's come out of the hairpin. He had to drive through all of that. We'll have to see whether or not it affected him and he decides to come in. It looks like it didn't. He's coming through the chicane. Jumps into P6 of 110.3.
Yeah, Dirk Chocolate not too far down the road. He's entering the Wall of Champions chicane. And he's taking a lot of the curb, and that is an invalidation on that final corner. Something we're all too familiar with seeing. And penalties around this track, definitely very easy to pick up if you're not paying full attention. And we saw it on Tuesday where a lot of drivers picked up some pretty hefty penalties throughout the course of the race.
Yeah, for sure. The thing with that exit, well, that 13-14, that Wall of Champions chicane, if you invalidate through that chicane, not only do you invalidate the present lap that you're trying to get a time set on, but you're more than likely invalidating the next lap ahead of you as well. So you really need to make sure that you're taking that chicane as best you can, keeping those tires on circuit, making sure you don't cut, making sure you don't exceed. And you can see now Wisp on the medium compound tires, a 110.891. Looks like he's just cruising at the moment, getting some laps in. Yet to set his final time, perhaps.
Yeah, someone interesting, Squid, he's just improved on his time on 108.999, so pretty much a 109. And whilst it is an improvement, his tyres now are quite old for a set of softs. And it's interesting to me that he's done so many laps on that one set, because if he can't beat that, that will be his starting set of tyres at the beginning of this race. So, an interesting decision from the Williams driver there.
A lot of these drivers perhaps testing the waters with that chicane, even going out with extra fuel, trying to nail down that chicane, that Wall of Champions, because if they don't get that nailed down heading into a flyer, they're just going to waste a set of tires. You see a lot of drivers out on these mediums right now.
Yeah, it's certainly tricky, and obviously you have to sort of plan for it. Obviously, this is where practice comes in, and you can learn those track limits prior to the race. So qualifying possibly not the best place to do it, as we see Extreme come through those final couple of corners. He's on for a 109.8. That puts him 5th, 2 places down on his teammate Maxime B.
Now I think it's a Max flying through 3-4 right now. He's in that racing point, yet to set a time. I believe this is his final race as a full-time driver. I think he's dropping to reserve. Not entirely sure what the situation is for the Racing Point. Of course, it's a Max, no stranger to the MRL. He's been with us for 2 seasons now. Great driver. Of course, coming through the 8-9 chicane here. You can see struggling a little bit on 9 because that traction, to get the traction out of 9, we saw it on Tuesday. It's a pain. Coming down into this 10 hairpin. Hugging the inside as best he can.
Crampy as well. He's on a flyer, and obviously that incident earlier costing him front wing and also a lot of time. So now on the medium tires, I'll have to see how he stacks up in the Haas. Comes out of turn 12.
It's a Max, a 110.6 for his first official time of the session.
Crampy then taking the Wall of Champions pretty confidently. Even though he did have an issue there earlier on this week in the EU grid, but it's 6th place for the Hazard, 109.9 on the medium compound tyres, so not a bad time at all, but he's just been knocked down a peg by Undertaker, a 109.7 on the soft for the Renault.
Domi now, starting a flyer, I believe, or did he just finish? I think he may have just finished, a 109.2.
Yeah. Lamp as well, a 109.6, that's put him to 6th place on the timing tab, but obviously he does have that 5-place grid penalty, so we'll have to see how that fares and where he ends up. Obviously right now he'd be about 11th place.
I believe that was Maxim B just crossed the line into P2, if I'm not mistaken. A 108.777 from the Canadian. So it's a Canadian 1-2 on the grid presently. And I'm not going to complain about that. And, well, we'll just have to see how things wrap out here in the last 7 minutes remaining here of qualifying. But, of course, Dirk Chocolate, we jumped on board with him a moment ago. There it is, coming out of 9. That's Dirk. He's gone round. And he's got to pull away and try to get out of that racing line. And he gets things wrapped around. But just as we switched over to him, coming through turn 9, we saw it, that loss of traction. As if on cue, as if.
Yeah, and he just got out of the way a little there as well, so it's nice to see that, he's able to get that car out of the way as quickly as possible. Obviously, the EU race earlier this week, he had that issue through the Champions chicane with coming together with Crampy, and both of them in this race looking for a bit of redemption. I think that's not how Dirk wants to start this evening, as Little Bear crosses a 109.8 from the McLaren driver.
Yeah, things are speeding up here for this grid right now. I think Max Singster was a victim of the final chicane where he had... Oh, and Dirk has had another issue, and this is out of turn 2. Oh, and that's a big issue there, Dirk Chocolate. That's Houdini, formerly known as Young IP, into the Mercedes under yellow flag conditions.
Yeah, didn't like there was a lot Dirk could have done, and it's a high-speed exit, and qualifying, a lot of yellow flags get thrown around with people trying to get out of the way. So unfortunate for the pair of them there. It doesn't look like the game's given out any penalty, but yeah, you hate to see that. And Houdini wasn't able to set a time, so he will be starting towards the back of this grid.
That was a huge crash. Huge crash. Houdini out of this qualifying session. Of course, you can see Kai Bacchini and Adrian there out of the session for qualifying as well. If you were wondering, they are currently both serving qualifying bans, but that was a massive incident between Dirk and Houdini, and I don't know really what to say about that. Of course, Stewart's going to take a serious look, but Dirk able to carry on through here, hopefully able to get in and out for another lap.
Yeah, and the stewards are going to hopefully get to take advantage of any onboards that those drivers have got, and they'll be a little bit more informed than we are when coming to a decision as to what happened there. But the rest of the drivers soldiering on. Wisp currently sitting in 14th place in the AlphaTauri. He's just come out of the turn 10 hairpin down the DRS straight out of turn 12. And I wasn't able to catch whether he's up on his time or not, but as he approaches the Champions chicane, he takes a lot of that inside curb, and that is an invalidation. So he's not got long, 4 minutes and 43 seconds left in the session, and it looks like he's got that invalidation for the next lap as well.
Crampy and the Haas flying here. Coming through Sector 2, DRS wide open on the rear, coming into the 8-9 chicane, and we'll have to see if this is going to claim another driver for a spin. Ooh, you can see it, Unicorn. You can see these drivers. They are struggling on 9.
Yeah, and we saw it take a couple of drivers out last time around on Tuesday, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it again this evening, because, like you've been saying, it's a tricky corner to get right, and lap after lap, just one blip of concentration, it will punish you. So it's a little bit tougher than maybe the Champions chicane, where a cut will net you a penalty, but a mistake out of 9 will spin your car and can be a fairly easy retirement as well.
Domi in the Williams, he's flying down the casino straight now into the Champions chicane. Oh, and it's a big invalidation there. He's almost... Oh, that was a big bash against the outside wall there for him. He's going to invalidate and have to go around with damage as well. His teammate Squid, however, he's coming through the chicane now. We'll see if he can improve. Takes a good portion of that inside curbing on entry there. He comes through, and it's not an improvement.
Yeah, not an improvement, which is a little bit surprising to me. Liam he's slightly down on his time as well, but he really did take a lot of that inside cut. I'm surprised it wasn't invalidation, to be honest. Liam coming back into the pits, his teammate Gadwin still going around on these medium tires, and he spins out of champions. That's a lot of damage to his front wing, and he's just going to have to hold his car here for the moment. And there we go, he's going to get spun around. There's no one coming, but his tires are so old. He's 5 laps in on these mediums. It's almost like he's racing. A very peculiar instance indeed for a Red Bull driver.
Undertaker improves by precisely 4/10 on his previous time. He is 5th presently.
Maxime B, he's on a fly, and looks like he's improved through Sector 1 by a 10th in the Alfa Romeo. So we'll have to see. As he comes out of 9, he grazes the wall on exit. Not the wall we're typically seeing, but very tricky nonetheless, and that has shaved off the 10th that he'd found. So now it's all down to the 3rd sector. As he comes down, opens his DRS. You can see the battery in full deployment. Now it's champions. Again, a lot of those curbs taken, but he's utilised them well, and he's well within his limits as well. And across the line, it's a slight improvement. It's a 108.702. It was a 777, so less than a 10th shaved off there.
Now Liam, current provisional pole sitter, has decided to exit the pit lane. Regardless of Maxime's last lap, he thinks that he may need to set something perhaps a little bit quicker than the 108.3, but you can see now he is heading out. And a variety of drivers now are going to have an opportunity to get a few more another lap in, I should say, per driver. Max Inkster, currently 12th position on the board in the Haas. He's come through into the DRS straight of Sector 2, into this 8-9 chicane. Fairly steady through 9. Not like what we've seen. And he is up quite a significant amount here as well. Nearly 7/10 for him.
Yeah, and his closest rival, Cotter's, just ahead both within about 0.05 of a second. He's going to cross the line, and it's not an improvement for the Racing Point, who might be forced to go around again here if he wants to get into that top 10. As Extreme retires from the session, I do believe that's in the pit lane though. And Dirk Chocolate has invalidated yet another flying lap here. His tyre's already fairly old. Not going to want to go around those again.
Well, one driver to talk about here, Max Inkster into 7th position. And his teammate Crampy has now just headed out of the pit lane here. And there's been a retirement, that's Undertaker. He's decided to call it a day over in the pit lane. He's not going to be going for any further laps. Of course, guys, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Misfits Racing League Tier 2 action. Of course, it's round number 9. We're here for the Canadian Grand Prix. My name is Strifium. Joining me is Unicorn, and we would love it if you were to hit that follow button, because we've got tons of racing action coming to you this season. Of course, this qualifying session nearly finished, as Crampy in that Haas is going to be beginning a flyer here to perhaps improve on a 109.9. We'll check back in with him momentarily as we look to see who else may be looking to improve. It's the Ferrari of Lamp coming down the Casino Straight.
A couple of other drivers to talk about. Wisp has just improved by 1.5 seconds. He's now up to 6th at 109.3. And Domi as well. He was really up in Sector 1, but he seems to have lost that through Sector 2. Oh, wait, no. Interesting. But he was up on his time by about 0.4, but he seems to have lost some of that improvement. Now flying through Sector 2, where there's a McLaren of Minaber out of 8. I don't know if there was damage on that McLaren or not, but through the hairpin.
Yeah, he's missing a front left end plate, I do believe, on Little Bear's car there. Domi flying through down into the Casino Straight now in the Williams. Ooh, that's P2, and I know somebody who's going to be upset about that. Maxim in 3rd. Not going to be impressed.
Okay. Crampy as well, a 108.9. Puts him up to 4th, a big improvement from him. There are still a few drivers. The desync again. Something that's been in this game a fair amount, and it looks like Squid might have been held up a little bit in the final chicane as Gadwin very sidewards out of the Wall of Champions chicane as well. And that is the end of the session.
Well, what a qualifying session that was, Unicorn, as all of these drivers now getting their times in. Let's take a look. That's Liam, the Canadian driver here in the Red Bull on pole. Domi lining up next to him, the Hungarian in the Williams, as well as Maxim B, who was, up until just a few moments ago, up on the front row for a 1-2 lockout from Canadian drivers here for the Grand Prix. But what a grid we are looking at here. Of course, Kai Bacchini, Adrian, no time set as they're serving qualifying bans, and Houdini with that very terrible crash. Of course, it's going to be Crampy in 4th, Squid in 5th. Rounding out your top 5 will go down through the rest of this grid come the formation lap.
Yeah, and looking at the drivers here, Gadwin the only one in that top 10 to qualify on mediums. Obviously, everyone else free to choose outside of the top 10. But we'll have to see how Gadwin's strategy there plays into his hands. And it's looking kind of overcast here. Not sure if we loaded into the race or whether we're going to see some rain during the session.
Have we gotten
Looks
an
like it could
official
be
weather
possible.
report? We have
I haven't
a
seen
weather
one.
report. That'd be fantastic, because if we've got rain coming, that just kicks things up a notch. But of course, the threat of rain in itself can put some pressure on drivers, and we'll have to see how these guys go through down into, of course, turns 1 and 2. A lot of chicanes in this circuit. It's going to be quite the train here on the opening lap. So I just wish everyone well. Patience is a virtue.
Yeah, and especially we've seen there are a few areas where going side by side on this track can be problematic for both drivers, so we'll have to see how everyone handles that. Obviously, coming out of Monaco and Baku, it's a little bit more lenient. That's the way you can go here.
Okay, so Liam leading off this race on pole position. Domi in 2nd there, lining up next to him on the front row. Maxim B in 3rd, Crampy in 4th, Squid in 5th, Wisp in 6th. You have Undertaker in 7th with the Finn Gadwin in 8th, the Scotsman Max Inkster in 9th, and the American Little Bear rounding out the top 10 here. Extreme from Croatia there in 11th, Cotters in 12th, Lamp 13th, Itzamax 14th, Alord 15th, Yasko in 16th, Kai Bacchini in 17th after serving his qualification ban. Adrian there right next to him in 18th, Houdini no time set as a result of his collision with Dirk Chocolate, and Dirk Chocolate I do believe at the back of the grid perhaps as a result of a grid penalty. So it's going to be a real tough race for the Mercedes squad today, as it's the Red Bull and the Canadian of Liam that are going to be kicking things off here off the line.
Yeah, and obviously a home Grand Prix, even if we are in a virtual world, it means something to the drivers. So we'll have to see who wants it more. Obviously both the Canadians very high up the grid here, so we'll have to wait and see how they fare over the coming 35 laps.
A certain amount of pressure, I think, comes with it being the home Grand Prix. You want to perform. You want to say, hey, I'm a Canadian. I can go around the Canadian circuit better than you. And I think that that's what Liam and Maxim are aiming for right now. Domi kind of putting the wrench in that equation for that lockout. But we're going to have a fantastic race start here. All of these drivers now. Dirk Chocolate just lining up on the grid at the rear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights here in Montreal. The lights have gone out, and we've seen it before, and we're seeing it again. The timing desync. But the driver's revving hard here. Full revs for the Red Bull, and that's Liam off this grid, and we are away racing here in Montreal. Finally, as it's the Red Bull under threat already from Domi. Domi's already taken Liam on the inside through into turn 1.
Oh, it's the Williams of Squid. He's around on turn 1. He's collected Gadwin.
Well, yellow
Lamp as
flags.
well.
Yellow flags through
Lamp on the
Sector
wall.
1 here. Predicted pit stop strategy coming up, and we have some time to review it, Unicorn, because the safety car is on its way out.
Yeah, an interesting turn 1 there. Sort of a very slow crash, something that maybe not used to seeing. The guys on the right-hand side of the grid, you've got Domi getting a good start on Liam around the outside. Crampy as well got past Maxime B. So the home crowd a little bit disappointed. But then you had Squid. He sort of had a slow spin in front of Gadwin, and both of them just came off of the corner, and they had to wait for everyone to pass. They didn't cause any issues really, other than between themselves. And then you have Lamp. I don't know if there was contact with another car, but he has lost his entire front wing. That's what's caused this safety car smacking the wall out of turn 2. So
yeah, most definitely.
Start. No worries. It's Cotters. He's had a good start as well. Up 5 places into 7th. So, again, a racing point with a reserve driver in it doing well. And Extreme, he's come into the pits. Let's see. He's started this race on the medium compound tyre. Let's have a look as to whether he needs a front wing. He does have a damaged front wing, so he's getting onto fresh mediums with a front wing as well. The likes of Squid, Gadwin, and Lamp, they're all coming in for repairs as well. Let's see what they opt for here. Gadwin going for a fresh set of softs, Lamp on a fresh set of mediums, and Squid, he's opting for the hards at the early stage of this Grand Prix. So already strategy differences are coming in. But for the time being, it's Domi now in the lead of this race, up from P2 on the grid. Liam's down 1. He's into 2nd. Crampy, a good start from him. He's got past Maxime on the start for 3rd and 4th respectively. And then Wisp in 5th place.
What a wild race start that was. The position change is extreme here. And this safety car is going to throw so much of a dynamic into the tire situation down the line. We have 4 drivers who've already had to come in. It's going to be a very interesting race from this point out, and oh man. Welcome to Montreal. If you saw 2011, you know some wild things can happen here around Canada.
Yeah, it's one of these tracks that's sort of immortalized in F1 history. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Safety car going for at least 1 more lap here at the start of this race. And a lot of people expected this, a lot of drivers, some even under-fueling their cars because they thought that safety cars were going to be present. And right they are.
There's quite a few tricky places that can cause a safety car here. Turn 1, just the beginning of the equation. And of course you have the 3-4 chicane where we saw most recently Vettel cutting on the inside through the grass, lost him a podium in that, or lost him a win in that race, excuse me. And then you have, of course, the 6-7 chicane, lost of traction coming out of 7. Then you go into 8-9, and we already saw it happen multiple times in quali. That's been causing issues this season. And then, of course, the iconic Walla Champions, the 13-14 chicane, where most people would assume a lot of the action and issues that may come as a result of collisions or things like this will occur in that section of circuit. So we'll just have to see how those things play out here. We have a long race here in Canada, 35 laps. We're here on lap 3. And of course the safety car has been called into the pit lane.
Yep, more than enough time to clear a front wing off of the track and maybe a couple of end plates as well, but everyone just trying to keep those tyres warm behind Domi. He's got a lot of hungry drivers behind him.
Big train of cars coming down through this field, and the big question is, when is he going to go? Because that safety car is now into the pit lane here, and he can go really at any time, and I think he might just wind up this grid to the chicane. All right, Domi's gone, but he's had some wheel spin. That's Liam. Ooh, what is going on here? He's waiting right to the line, this guy. He has let go. He is going through, and we're having a rolling restart here. That's Liam now on the inside. Rampy very tight to his rear. We have a yellow flag through turn 1 again, and that was a very unique restart here. And there's a couple of drivers falling back here. I think Itamax and Cotters perhaps.
Yeah, Cotters very interesting into turn 1. Very slow. He came a little bit together with Jasko, neither really having too significant contact, but Cotters was sort of pushed off the track, and because everyone was fighting through side by side off the restart, he just couldn't rejoin the track, so he's lost a huge amount of positions off of that restart there.
Jasko on the inside of Little Bear into 8-9. He gets the move done. Very neat from him. Into 8th is the Ferrari. Meanwhile, Kai Bacchini is hunting down Wisp. Wisp defending 6th position right now, trying to hold with this train, but it's Kai Bacchini. He's on medium compound tires right now. Wisp with a kick out of the rear of that AlphaTauri. He is under serious threat as Kai Bacchini comes down the casino straight. Is there going to be a move here? All of these drivers showing a lot of patience, now having to go behind that safety car. We'll see if they're itching to go. Kai doing well to stay through this chicane here. Wisp not under major risk just yet. We're going to switch back on over because it's a max, excuse me, with a move, it would appear, on Houdini, and that's going to open the door for Cotters here. And on the grass around the outside here, is the Racing Point going to get this move done? Houdini holds 13th for now, and it was very shaky. You can see Cotters doing his very best to hold it out of second. Meanwhile, Gadwin is through with the Renault taking him as well, and that is Gadwin and A-Lord through on the Racing Point. Wow, what a move that was. We move things back on over to Kai Bacchini because he is right on the gearbox of Wisp as we come down the DRS straight of Sector 2 into 8-9. What's going to happen here? The Mercedes on the inside. He has now dispatched the AlphaTauri, and he's looking to hunt down the next target. That's going to be Max Singster ahead.
Kai Bacchini is absolutely on fire. He started this race, I think, in 17th place because of that qualifying ban, and is now in 6th. Obviously, we had the safety car as well, so that stunted how many overtakes he could have made. Obviously, it bunches the grid up a bit as well, but he's absolutely on fire right now. Further up, Liam, no DRS as of yet, so he hasn't got that on dummy, but he's right on the rear of the Williams. Overtake enabled, looking to the left, down towards turn 1. Liam setting the fastest lap of the race. He's not going to make it through turn 1. Can he do anything on the exit of turn 2? There's a lot of time to be gained if you get good traction, but it looks like Domi's got in there. Behind them, Crampy's not too far behind either. But there's still Domi in the lead of this race for the time being.
This has been a wild, wild race so far here, Unicorn. We've had a lot of real tight overtakes through the chicanes already, and that's not places where you'd normally see it. We're going to jump on with Gadwin real quick here as he's looking at It's a Max, but I think Liam might have another crack at Domi, so we're going to go back over to the front because as we come out of 9 here, let's see if any of them struggle. Not too much just yet, but when those tires start to wear down, that 9 exit is going to be a pain in the neck.
Yeah, and this is the lap. Liam, he's already had DRS once. Down between 7 and 8. Now he's going to get it again. Not a good exit compared to Domi, though, out of turn 10. Now down through 11 and 12 onto this long DRS straight. Is he going to be able to close that gap? He's absolutely flying, but he's not going to be close enough, I don't think, for champions. But again, DRS will be re-enabled down the start-finish straight. Down towards turn 1 as Kai Bacchini is past Max Inkster just before the chicane.
Yeah, we got Kai with that overtake. It was fantastic. Liam struggling to hunt down the Hungarian right now. That Canadian wants to win.
Yeah, these guys are going to be wary at the front of Kai Bacchini because not only is he absolutely flying through this grid, he's on these medium compound tyres as well. So he's going to be running for a little bit longer and could definitely go for a fairly easy one-stop here if he doesn't receive any damage.
This grid on fire right now as there's overtakes happening all up and down the tower. We're going to check in with Dirk Chocolate in the Mercedes. I believe he has a target in his sights. That's A-Lord in the Renault. Dirk is on these 6-lap-old hards. He had that, well, that big brain idea to get on the hards early, and it looks like it's going to work out for him. He started this race in 20th. He's now into 16th position, and he's just going to hold steady and be as patient as he can and try to net what he sees ahead. Now that's It's a Max. It looks like he's had an issue. That was out of 9. And it's just coming to haunt these guys, that turn.
Yeah, Liam, again, close, but not quite through champions now. Down the start finish straight once again. Domi showing in the outside, knows that the Red Bull is closer this time. And it is the Williams on the inside, but the Red Bull around the outside, the inside line into turn 2. And it is now Liam just about in the lead of this race, but Domi with another exit overtake enabled just to give him that spurt of acceleration, and he holds it on to 3-4. Excellent piece of driving from Domi. A good attempt from Liam, but still not quite. And Crampy has caught up to this party as well in third place right now. He's picked up a 3-second time penalty though, and that's going to cost him towards the end of this race if he's already got one 8 laps into this Grand Prix.
That was an absolute wild exchange between these three drivers. Crampy was looking for an open door. Liam had a real shaky exit out of that second turn, and now Domi back into first is going to be happy he got ahead of the Red Bull into that 3-4 chicane, because now he's got him for another lap here. But Crampy, he's putting pressure on both of these guys at the end of the day. And you know who else is putting pressure on these guys? Kai Bacchini has joined the party, and he's on these medium compound tires in the Merc. And he's looking to do some merking, I have to say. These drivers ahead of him under serious threat.
Yeah, the tire compound not costing him as Liam has had a huge problem through champions. It looked like he maybe wanted to come into the pit lane.
Oh, and that is the AlphaTauri of Adrian straight head on into the Red Bull. And the sister car is now smashed into the front of the... Oh, my dear. Absolute scenes here, and there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Wall of Champions has struck officially here for Tier 2. Safety car has been deployed.
Yeah, Crampy has really benefited from this because he was in the pit lane and then the crash happened right behind him. So he, now in 8th place on fresh tyres, pretty much everyone ahead of him is going to want to come into the pit lane, and I think he might sneak into the lead of this race here. A very good stroke of luck for the Haas. Well, like I was saying, he's got penalties, so if he keeps racking them up, it's going to cost him towards the end. But Kai Bacchini, second already now after that. Like I said, though, Crampy's probably going to jump him in the pit stops, but...
Wow. This race has been pure intensity, I think, is the word I'll use for this. We've had absolute amazing overtakes, and now we've had some drama. It was the Canadian who took pole, Liam, out of this race here on lap 8. And as we move through on lap 9, the safety car now deployed. You hate to see it, as Liam was in a very good position to take a win, as he was in a great battle with Domi. He was on pole position. He was keeping well with the Hungarian, and then that slip up, I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but it cost him dearly.
Well, speaking of slip-ups that are going to cost people dearly, Domi, he's getting a new front wing. He's getting medium tyres, but he also picked up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So he is not going to be too happy with himself about that. Kai Bacchini as well, he's switched onto the hard compound tyres. Whether he can take these to the end, as Codders picks up a drive-through penalty for speeding under safety car. And Crampy in third place. Neither of the McLarens pitting, both on line lap old medians, and that could cost them if they both want to come in at the end of the same lap. So...
yeah, and
interesting decision from that garage.
Yeah, for sure. Key thing to point out, of course, guys, in this stream, if you're viewing, the Misfits Racing League has ghosting disabled. So ghosting is not permitted, and we do not allow resetting to circuit. This is to promote, of course, a little bit of more of a real element. Drivers, usually when there's yellow flags on a circuit in reality, you slow down. You see a yellow light, you slow down. So... lessons to be learned here, of course. And now you see Adrian and Liam both out of this race in what I think could have been an avoidable situation.
Yeah, it's certainly a tricky pace circuit, but like you said, you see those yellow flags, it's a sign to slow down and that there's an issue up ahead, and an issue up ahead there was the Red Bull of Liam across the track, and like you said, Adrian just careering into him, so unfortunate, but the race will go on here once the safety car comes in. And one person that's going to be interesting to watch on this restart, Kai Bacchini on the hard compound tyre, the only person on this grid right now on the white wall tyre. Everyone else opting for the medium pretty much, especially in the top 10, so it didn't stop him chasing down the soft runners on the medium tyres at the start of this race. We'll have to see how he fares against the medium runners in the mid to late stages of this race.
Yeah, for sure. Hards here. Ooh, they can be a very, very interesting factor in a race. They can go very long. The question is, what kind of pace do they yield? And these two McLarens on these medium compound tires are, I imagine, having a laugh right now. because, well, I believe the last driver to win here in a McLaren around Canada would have been Jenson Button in 2011. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm pretty sure you're right on that one, and that is a race to remember. And
hard to forget that one. It really is.
yeah. If anyone's watched that race, you're more than aware of what we're referring to. But yeah, no rain here at the moment.
Yeah, and of course we have Tier 1 later as well. They'll get the roll of the dice, and you know how bad I want to see rain here in Montreal. Safety car is coming in this lap.
Yeah, safety car, and we'll get racing underway again. Everyone weaving down this straight, and we've got an interesting situation here where we've got two cars on 10-lap-old mediums. Cotter's as well in 5th. He's on those tyres as well. So we'll have to see how he plays into it, and we've got Little Bear, who appears to have already gone here.
Kai Baccini's already right on the rear of Crampy here, and they're across the line now. Kai's going to look for the inside coming down into turn 1. He's got it. Is he going to get the move on the Haas right now? He's looking for early positions. That's Crampy on the inside. How are things going to go on the exit? Traction's good for both. It's still Crampy holding on the inside. Are they going to yield? They're coming down through 3-4. It's still clean right now. Who's going to yield? Nobody's yielding. Crampy in 3rd. Kai Baccini, how did he not get the Haas? That was absolutely... oh my god.
Crampy very brave to keep that car where he kept it positioned. 3-3-4, it's very risky to go side by side, but he was like, this is my position, you're the one who has to take it if you want it. And he's held on to it for now, but here we go, Crampy now looking around the outside of Houdini down into the hairpin. There's a yellow flag out on track, but I'm not sure who it's for. Houdini goes a little bit deep, and that's Crampy with the cutback up the inside, and now Kai Baccini is the one with the McLaren ahead of him, and this could let Crampy run away a little bit if Crampy, with Kai Baccini can't dispatch of Houdini quickly enough.
Max Singster with Domi, they're wheel-to-wheel. Max Singster on the rear of the Williams on the inside, and that's going to be Cotters jumping into the pit lane here as Kai Baccini with a fantastic exit out of turn 14 has now dispatched the McLaren of Houdini into turn 1. Kai Baccini into 3rd position. From a very far back position on this grid, he's made it up 14 positions here on lap 13.
Yeah, starting on those mediums really has helped him. And it's now Crampy hunting down the lead of this race. Looking at Little Bear, who's on 12-lap-old mediums. So those tyres, you can see him feeling it through 6 and 7 here. And Crampy a much better exit. Overtake enabled on both cars. And Little Bear has barely used any. He's at 80% battery charge, but it is Crampy. They're side by side going through 8 and 9, and that is the Haas up into 1st place for the time being.
Yeah, and we have major action here. Sorry to interrupt you, Unicorn. We have major action here. That's Maxime B, the Canadian, on Houdini, the other McLaren, into 4th position. They're coming down into the hairpin. Little Bear has a big lockup. That's Crampy through into the lead of this race, and Kai Baccini through as well.
Domi as well, he's snuck past as well into 6th place, so there's action up and down, and Houdini's now under pressure from the Williams. A lot of action through that one corner. Here he goes, Domi looking up the inside into Champions. It's a bit late, but on the brakes, and he's had a little bit of an issue. I don't think it's caused too much, but that's Jasko up 2 positions. Max Inkster might have run into the back of Domi there, but now they're 3 wide going down into turn 1. It's Gadwin up the inside of Max Inkster. He's had a little bit of issue with Jasko ahead. Max Inkster defends up the inside into turn 2, and Dirk Chocolate's got past Wisp for 10th place, and Domi now back down to 9th as Gadwin side by side with Domi. Domi just backing out before 3 and 4, and this race is absolutely incredible so far.
Go and grab the boys and get in here because this is absolute intensity. Maxim B, the Canadian, on the inside down into the 8-9 chicane. Lovely stuff out of the Alfa Romeo, and it is an absolute train, and Dirk Chocolate is looking to profit here. He's coming out of the 8-9 chicane now. He's got the Williams in his sight. He's into that final points position at the moment, and here's something to talk about. He started this race in the back of this grid.
Jasko deep into the hairpin. And he almost got the position of Houdini, but the McLaren holding on for the time being. Yeah, the guys who started at the back of this grid really doing well. But Gadwin now, side by side with Max Inkster down towards Champions. And Jasko's looking at the inside ahead of him. The Ferrari up the inside of the McLaren. The McLaren slow moving. And Gadwin and Jasko making positions now on the start-finish straight down towards turn 1. This DRS train here for 5th place. No one looking for moves yet. Gadwin looking a bit late up the inside of the McLaren. Is that going to cost him to the house behind him? And it's Dirk Chocolate.
What a move.
Sorry, squeezing up from Max
What a
Inkster and
move.
Dirk Chocolate as well. Oh my goodness.
That was wild. I cannot believe they didn't come together there. As Max Inkster in 9th position right now on these medium compound tires. He's looking to stick with Domi as best he can. Gadwin is a bit sideways coming through turn 7. Excuse me, that's 6 and 7. That's chicane there. He's dropped into 9th position. Is Dirk going to get him as well? That's Gadwin with Max Inkster.
Is Gadwin going to hold on? He's high by side with Max. Very late on the brakes. He's nearly missed it. He's going to have to find that marker. He hasn't found it. It's not there anymore. But he might be forced to concede the place to Max Inkster here. They're side by side going into the hairpin. Domi ahead up past Houdini. And Houdini's slow on the brakes. And that's going to cost Gadwin positions.
Well, Gadwin had to run wide there. Dirk looked for the door. He went through the door. And then he got held up on the exit of the hairpin now. And it's Wisp cutting through now, and this is an absolute... Oh, this is a crazy battle we're seeing unfold here. Wisp with a dive into the chicane. He gets 8 away from the McLaren. Wow.
I'm pretty sure Wisp has just taken 3 positions from that hairpin down that straight. A very excellent sort of magpie move, really stealing what he can from drivers as Gadwin goes wide. Is Wisp going to make another move here? Is not. Gadwin, the soft tires giving him a traction out of 2.
Hey, this is a battle between 2 serious countries right now. You got the Finn in 7th versus the Swede in 8th, and I don't think Wisp is looking for any prisoners here in this fight. He's been charging through on this stint, and Gadwin's on the softs. Going to be real tough to keep him at bay, but speaking of keeping people at bay, Little Bear is struggling on these 15-lap-old hards now. It's the Ferrari of Yasko who's moving through, coming out of turn 9.
Yeah, as well, Dirk Chocolate, he's behind.
Oh, and Domi's made a move on both of them into 4th position coming into the hairpin, and a big lockup there from Little Bear is going to let Yasko slip right through.
Oh, and the medium already slow to the other McLaren. Houdini, he's holding up traffic as well. He's got Dirk Chocolate behind him. That led Extreme a little bit wide. He lets go around outside of the Dirk Chocolate, but that's Squid now on the back of them. So we've got 4 cars down here. They're vying for 10th position as well. Out towards Champions Squid.
Oh my god. Unicorn, I'm sorry to interrupt. Domi here on the inside into turn 1 on the McLaren. Little Bear with a bit of a lockup. He is into 5th. Unicorn, your mic's bugging out a little bit, my friend. You may have some lag issues. Of course, Gadwin on the inside into the 3-4 chicane. How's it going to go? He's got the McLaren as well, and Wisp is coming through in the AlphaTauri as well. Holy smokes, this is an absolute battle here around Montreal, and I love to see it. This is absolute intensity, and it's going to be really hard for Tier 1 to undo this amazing, amazing race. Look at the groups of cars. Look at the overtakes. It's what you love to see in Formula 1, and it's Little Bear who's about to lose out. That's the Swede of Wisp. Charging through out of turn 9. Overtake on the inside into the hairpin. How's it going to go? We've seen Little Bear lock up here before. Is he going to lock up again? Who is that? That's the Haas of Max Inkster. He's going to get through on the McLaren as well. Wheel to wheel coming out of turn 10. Tapping through 11. You can see the speed coming out of Max Inkster. He's on tires that are half the... Oh my god. And he's looking at Wisp as well. Crazy racing here.
Hello, is that fixed issues as we see?
So far, so good.
Excellent stuff. Domi as well. He got past Yasko on the straight under DRS, and he's flying away from the Ferrari at the moment. And it looks like we have just a little bit of calm as some of the drivers, the likes of Dirk Chocolate, Extreme, and Squid, come into the pit lane. And man, what a restart that was, if you can call it a restart, because that was a good 10 laps of action.
That was wild. That was a wild encounter. We're getting things slowed down a little bit now. People falling into their pace. The DRS train starting to fall out of action a little bit. Gadwin currently within DRS, however, of Yasko ahead. Trying to do what he can on these soft compound tires. Of course, drivers have begun to jump into the pit stop train. And look at Little Bear and Houdini and the McLarens. We saw them at the start of that restart. As funny as that may sound, of course, the safety car restart, they were leading the race 1-2. Now they've dropped into 9 and 10 in the space of 10 laps, and it's been very difficult for those two to hold any positions on their very, very worn medium compound tires. 17 laps apiece for both of them.
Yeah, they're really pushing those tires to their absolute limit, and it's interesting to me because we're at the halfway point in this race, and you would have thought they would have pitted for hards now. To get them to the end of this race, it'd be very interesting to see what the tyre wear is on those medium tyres on both of those McLarens, and they can't really afford to put on the same lap because right now Houdini would be double stacked significantly, so the power sort of in Little Bear's hands at the moment as to who gets priority in the pit lane.
I'm gonna take this little moment of breath, or a breath of fresh air to never mind. Lamp looking at Extreme, but he's got a lockup into turn 1. I don't know if he's gonna be able to make something happen here with Extreme. But as I was about to say, of course, if you are enjoying the broadcast, hit that follow button because we are live Tuesdays, Thursdays, as well as Fridays for racing action as Gadwin takes a position off of Yasko coming out of the turn 10 hairpin. Of course, if you're looking to race in the Misfits Racing League, jump into the Discord and apply. We are always looking for more drivers, and of course, it's a fantastic community to be a part of as the pit stops are starting to come through and position changes are starting to fall down. It's currently Crampy in lead of this race in the Haas. He's pulled out a 2.4 second gap over Kai Bacchini. There is a tire difference between the two, but both of them moving up quite well here on this grid, and it's the Hungarian of Domi in the Williams rounding out the top 3 current podium placed drivers.
Yeah, and speaking of pit stops, Maxime B onto fresh hards and a fresh wing as well. He's got Itzamax and Alord in the pits behind him as well. And like you're saying, pit stops are going to come into the play here. Whether Kai Bacchini can go to the end to 25 laps on a set of hards does seem possible if Little Bear and Houdini are taking those mediums 19. But like we were saying earlier, what the pace will be like of those tyres, he doesn't seem to be struggling too much at the moment. But Crampy probably going to come into the pit lane at some point for what I would imagine would be soft tyres towards the end of this race. Maybe
Squid around the outside. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Squid around the outside of Extreme coming through out of turn 7. Ooh, what a move from the Williams. What a move. Cotters now going to be looking to catch up with Squid here as well, as Extreme has taken the position back from Squid.
As Undertaker seems to have had an issue. He's pointing the wrong way out of a champion chicane. The Renault has actually managed to dig his car into the pit lane.
Oh, tempting fate was him. That's for sure. That's for sure. And that's Jasko outside of turn 7. He is crashed into the inside wall. And we'll have to see if that sparks a safety car here because that was a very violent crash coming out of there.
Where is the Ferrari on board with Houdini? The yellow flags. The front right completely obliterated the Ferrari, but it's off the racing line enough that the game doesn't seem to want to flag a safety car for the time being. So just a yellow in that part of sector 2. The car's gone, and that is that situation over and done with. As Dirk picks up a 3-second time penalty trying to chase down Cotters on these fresh medium tyres.
This has been quite the race, Unicorn, and now it's just it's the race that just keeps on giving, as we said in Monaco a couple weeks ago for Tier 2 action. They're getting another one here, and it's Dirk Chocolate on the inside of 2 cars into the hairpin. Is he going to get it down in the inside? Yes, he is. Is he going to get the clean exit? He's got the Ferrari on the hards with a good one, and that's Lamp. Wow, what a move coming out of Dirk there. That was really close, and now he's going to get a bit of a slipstream off of Lamp ahead in that Ferrari. Lamp squeezing him a bit to the outside. Who's going to have the better line through? That's going to be Lamp on the inside. Dirk has to hold off, and now it's the racing point of Cotters that has to slow up very carefully. Almost going into the rear of Dirk there. Of course, they're teammates in the EU grid, and that was just wild, wild racing for those guys.
Yeah, Dirk's super late on the brakes down into turn 10. I think he was just going for the move on Cotters, but sort of misjudged it and almost fired it into Lamp as well. Luckily, both racers being aware enough. But then Dirk as well, down towards the World Champions chicane. He had that issue earlier on Tuesday in the EU division, where he spun going side by side and backing out very aggressively and conceding 11th place, holding off for the time being on Lamp. But now he's super close behind that Ferrari anyway. He knows his tyres have the pace. Patience, like we always say, is a virtue here in racing. Max gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane now, a little bit less aggressive going into the hairpin. Is Dirk Chocolate almost touching the rear of the Ferrari, if not just gently tapping it, but now he's going to have DRS, ERS as well. The rear wing of that Mercedes wide open. You can see he's just closing the gap on the Ferrari. Not too quickly though, around the outside he's going to have to back out again. A little lock-up from the Ferrari, and Lamp still holding on to a P11 for the time being.
That inside line through in the 13-14 chicane is the better line when it comes to wheel-to-wheel action, because it's almost always the outside line that has to pull off, considering how that chicane goes. And now it looks like Houdini in an absolute battle here with It's a Max. He's on soft compound tires. He's looking to cut through and get some positions here. And it's been a while since we've seen Houdini on fire like this. We'll see if he can charge through on these softs. He could potentially rack up a points position here, but it's still Dirk Chocolate tight to the rear of the Ferrari in a fight to make his way through the grid and perhaps net some points from those drivers ahead. Of course, penalties very likely to play a role here come the finish line, and it's Domi now who has opted to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, he's serving 5-second penalty in there as well, so this is an interesting call for him, coming in for fresh mediums.
Oh,
I think we'll see the lights ahead of him.
Dirk, he had a good line on Lamp on the inside into the hairpin, but he had a big cook out of that turn 10 hairpin, and Lamp has now absolutely jetted away on the hards. And you hate to see it, but I think Dirk's going to have to do some work to get that position back.
There you go, back to what I was saying. Before Dirk started making some serious moves, Domi coming in for those mediums. Interesting call. Obviously, he had to serve that 5-second time penalty, but I think the guys ahead of him, the likes of Wisp, maybe Kai Bicini if he's not going to go to the end on those hard tyres, and Crampy. So Crampy and Wisp at least going to come into the pits, and I would expect the softs maybe in a couple of laps' time. I reckon you can get them 10 or so laps, just under, and I would expect to see these guys at the front. It's going to give them the best chance to try and re-hunt down Kai Bicini, especially if he stays out on these hard tyres.
Yeah, Dirk Chocolate here. He's on mediums versus hards. We know how the mediums can handle hards. Of course, he's just got to be a little bit more patient, I think, on that ERS. He's within 0.2 of Lamp right now. If he gets that patience, this time he's going for it around the outside. He's got a decent line. He's going to get the cut back through the inside here, but he doesn't have enough of that front wing to get by Lamp right now. DRS coming once again for the Mercedes, and now Wisp has gone into the pit lane for some fresh soft compound rubber. And it's a Max on Cotters with an exchange into the... Well, they're heading down into the Champions chicane.
Yeah, and these front guys, Wisp being the first to come onto the softs, will be interesting to see how his pace differs from Domi's at the end of this race, if he can catch him. About 3.6 seconds separate the pair of them, as well as Maxime B on recently fresh hard tyres as well. An interesting choice from the Alfa Romeo there, not to go on to mediums at this stage of the race. But Kai Bicini now within a second of Crampy, but that's because Crampy into the pit lane. He's going to come in for softs pretty much confirmed, I would expect. It is red tyres in the Haas pit box. So Kai Bicini now in lead of this race. His lead, it looks like Crampy is going to hold on to second place in the Haas. So we'll have to see what the gap is Crampy has to close on these soft tyres.
Curious thing is Lamp just took a 3-second time penalty, Unicorn. And he still has Dirk right up the rear of that Ferrari.
Yeah, speaking of penalties, let's have a look at the guys up at the front. Kai Bicini, a lot of warnings, but no penalties. Crampy, on the other hand, 2 penalties, so you've got to factor that in.
Ooh, Lamp with a big brush of the wall on exit of 14. Unicorn, I'm sorry to interrupt, and this is going to give Dirk Chocolate a very unique opportunity here. Wheel to wheel with the Ferrari coming down into turn 1. Who's going to get the better exit right now? Dirk Chocolate with a switch over onto the inside line there, coming out in front of the Ferrari. He is in to 11th position, and Lamp outside of turn 2. Big struggles coming out of the Ferrari on these hard compound tires, and we've seen it happen all race long, but he's going to lose a whole whack of positions now. Oh, and that's the Renault of A-Lord through into the rear of the Ferrari, and it looks like maybe Lamp thought everybody had made it through, and ooh, no damage though it would look like on that Renault. We'll have to see what happens coming out of turn 7 here.
Yep, Squid and Little Bear as well. They're going into the hairpin. The Williams in a medium, and he's almost done it, Squid, a little bit early, enabling overtake, I think, and that's really brought his rear around. Now DRS still on the car. He's shot well at range. He won't
Oh,
have
your
it from
mic
start to finish
again,
straight.
Unicorn. I'm sorry to interrupt you, my friend. Your mic's doing that again. I think there may be some kind of connection issue. But Lamp, major issues here on lap 27. Not entirely sure what happened over there at the Ferrari camp. Maybe some technical difficulties over in the car. But of course, Cotter's on the inside now of his teammate into the chicane, but he's forced to cut. It's a Max getting through back into 13th.
Connection is back.
Very, very wild race it's been here through Gilles Villeneuve, of course, Montreal, Quebec, the Canadian Grand Prix for Round 9 Tier 2. If you guys are just joining us, it's Misfits Racing here on a Thursday, of course. Hit that follow button. We do it all the time. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and most Saturdays, of course. We have Tier 1 action coming up after this race. We've got about 7 laps remaining here in this one, and a heck of a lot of racing and overtaking left to go.
As well, slight times to guide on ahead.
Still going there, Unicorn. I don't know what is happening. I don't know what is happening. Unicorn having some technical difficulties. Crampy right now in P2. He's on these soft compound tires. He's looking to go to the end of this race on these tires now. And it's Kai Baccini ahead of him, who's on these hards. And the time that Crampy is taking out of that Mercedes is lethal. Kai Baccini going to have to make a serious decision here. Little Bear, meanwhile, in 8th position. He's on some fresh soft compound tires in comparison to the mediums ahead, but of course we'll have to see what kind of pace those yields come down through the wire to the end of this race. Meanwhile, Extreme and Maxim getting an exchange on here. Extreme has front left end plate damage, and it's, of course, an exchange between teammates.
Extreme there, into the wall, smacking it out of turn 5, an interesting place for that to happen.
And I do believe your issues have been sorted. Welcome back.
Thank goodness. Fingers crossed it stays that way for the remaining 6 laps.
Well, lots of action we've had throughout this race. It's been fantastic, and still now, Little Bear on these softs. He's not able to keep too close to the rear of Squid right now. He's got DRS, though, coming out of turn 14. But he's had a big slip coming out of 14. Ooh, yeah. Very, very touch and go through there.
Slipping already, I think that's a bad sign for him. He's got 7 laps to go on these soft tyres, so definitely difficult for him, especially at the end of this race, as Domi has got into DRS range of Gadwin ahead of him. So I'll have to see how these guys come along the line. Gadwin with a lot more penalties than the Williams, but both are going to have time applied to them at the end of this race.
Going to be a big fight there at the end.
Meanwhile, Kai Baccini, penalty-free, I do believe, in that Mercedes. So he right now has not only a 12-second physical gap to Crampy behind him, but he's also got a little bit of a buffer in terms of the no penalties compared to Crampy, Gadwin, and Domi, all with penalties, as Gadwin picks up another one through champions.
Max MB has found Little Bear, the Canadian on the softs, looking to go for a charge here through the final phase of this race, of course. At the front, Kai Baccini 11 seconds ahead as it's a wheel-to-wheel exchange between these two. Who's going to have the better line through? Of course, that inside holds a really good position through that chicane, but it looks like Little Bear yields for Maxim. Meanwhile, Dirk Chocolate is really hunting down some points here as Extreme has jumped into the pit lane. Dirk has advanced into the points. He is in 10th position in the Mercedes. From 20th on this grid, I might add. Now, Kai Baccini has had a very good race. And if I'm not mistaken, he has kept it quite clean. Crampy, maybe not the same. Of course, Canada, I've heard the drivers refer to it as the new Mexico here in F1 2020 because the invalidations and the cutting strictness is quite wild. And of course, now there's an issue. A VSC has been deployed.
Yeah, not quite sure what happened there. I was looking at the penalty situation. Crampy picking up another one. That puts him at 9 seconds worth of penalties in the Haas compared to none for Kai Baccini, but Kai Baccini sort of a little bit lucky here that this is only a VSC and not a full safety car, because otherwise might have closed the gap Crampy had. I don't think he would have been able to pull out a 9-second gap anyway, even if he has got softs compared to hards, but still.
I have to say one thing here. Little Bear is missing his entire front wing, Unicorn.
Well, I think we found our culprit for causing the VSC then.
Perhaps something with Dirk, not entirely sure. Well, of course, review post-race right now, but as the VSC has come back in, Domi hunting down Gadwin in third.
Yeah, potentially another victim of turn 9 as well. Could be a nice place to take off a front wing, but he's fresh softs for the McLaren. As Domi still closing the gap. Now 6/10 behind Gadwin, rather than 1 whole second. And DRS and a full battery of ERS as well in the Williams could really pay dividends at the end of this race.
DRS so strong here around the Montreal circuit.
Yeah, Domi has a huge advantage. Gadwin at 10% now, whereas the Williams 70% in reserve into turn 1. And Domi now right on the rear of Gadwin, fully embracing his rear view mirrors. Domi's kind of plagued with that ever so much hated gearbox issue for me, but Red Bull ahead. Might not be ahead for too much longer, as Domi does have 2-lap younger medium tyres as they come into DRS between turns 7 and 8. The Williams driver, though, biding his time. He's got 3 laps or so to make his move, and he's got time to pick and choose his moments, but it looks like now might be his moment up the inside into the turn 10. Hairpin he goes. Gadwin forced a bit wide, but Domi a bit deep, and it might be Gadwin with the cutback now in the Red Bull. They're side by side, coming through turn 11 out of 12, but it is Domi with ERS advantage and DRS who's going to just storm away from the Red Bull.
Meanwhile, Maxim has made a move on Squid into the 8-9 chicane. He's made it into the 7th position, and we saw a few moments ago as well as Extreme got the better of Undertaker into 14th position. It's a Max now is the most recent exchange developing as he's on the inside of Houdini into the 8-9 chicane in the Racing Point. He gets through. Houdini holding off there. Squid with a good run on Maxim into the Champions chicane. Round the outside on the Canadian through. How's the exit going to go for Maxim? Good power, good traction on those softs. Coming down into turn 1, we have a fantastic battle here unfolding. The Canadian round the outside, switching on over to the inside ahead of the Williams. What a nice move to see here near the end of this race around home.
Yeah, the Canadian drivers won't be too happy though that it is home. Neither have had a particularly desirable race from where they started it. And the podium now completely devoid of any home races.
Yeah, Liam, the key one there, the pole sitter, dropping down into 19th position as a result of that terrible crash in the Champions chicane.
It's interesting though, because Domi now catching Crampy, it would appear, and Crampy's tyres ain't that old softs. They might start to go at the end of this race, and both have penalties, but I do believe Crampy has more. I'll just double check on that one. But Domi, I do think, is 3 seconds up on Crampy in terms of penalties, so he might not even have to make the move here. If they finish like this, I think Domi would steal that 2nd place away on penalties, but I think he wants it on track just as badly as he does in terms of just at the end of this race, overtake enabled DRS for the Williams. But it doesn't look like he's going to make the move down into 8 through 9. And Crampy getting a nice exit through there. Soft tyres not quite dead yet.
This is a fantastic battle for 2nd position right now with these two drivers.
Yeah, again, overtake Domi again. We saw him take Gadwin with a huge advantage of ERS. Here he goes up the inside of Crampy. He's not going to have any answer through Champions. Crampy, he's already had one mistake through Champions with another driver this week. He doesn't want another, and he's just going to try and hold on to 3rd. Gadwin behind him. He has a whole host of penalties, so I don't think Crampy has too much to worry about from the Red Bull driver, but up into 2nd for the Hungarian of Domi.
Now it's a battle between Renaults at the very back of this pack, and it's currently A-Lord in 14th. Could potentially see Undertaker jump ahead of him. as it looks like A-Lord may be suffering from some kind of connection instability here. Bit of a lock up there from A-Lord. How's the exit going to go for Undertaker? Needs to be careful here. You can see a little bit of rubber banding coming out of that Renault. Connection issues have been trending on F1 this season.
Yeah, the new game definitely has some bugs they still need to iron out, despite the time we've spent.
Houdini and Extreme in a battle right now through turn 1 and 2. Extreme holding on the inside right now. It's Kai Bacchini with the race win. A couple drivers taking their early checkered flag, but Kai Bacchini taking the race win. Domi in second position. That's Crampy in third with Gadwin in fourth. And where's Wisp going to land in all of this? He's coming through that final chicane now. What a race.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, Wisp not jumping Gadwin, but he wasn't far off, only 3.7 seconds, despite the fact that the actual physical gap was about 12 seconds.
Extreme and Houdini still having an exchange in the back of this field right now as drivers are starting to collect the flag, but of course it's going to be Extreme with a move on Houdini coming out of that turn 9 section. They come into the hairpin, and that's Extreme exiting it in 12th position. Let's see how things go. Dirk Chocolate now crossing the checkered line as it's Itzamax as well, who's going to finish here in 10th position for Racing Point. We'll have to see if penalties play a role.
And penalties played a role for Maxime B, who got to jump Max Inkster. So 6th place for Maxime there at the end of this race.
That was a very good bid for Race of the Year, if I do say so early on here in this season. For round number 9, that was Tier 2 racing action, and I have to say a big congratulations to Mr. Kai Bacchini. He did not have an opportunity to set a lap here in qualifying due to the fact that he was serving a qualifying ban, but qualifying ban doesn't matter to this man because he's just taken the win from the back of the pack. And I do believe it's a double points finish for Mercedes with Dirk, who went from 20th position as well to 10th. And it was just a fantastic race overall. Domi with the P2, Crampy in third. Lovely, lovely race as it was once again. From 17th position, Kai Bacchini with the race win. Domi from second, he stays second. Crampy from 4th to 3rd, and that is your podium here in this one. It was round 9, Tier 2 racing. If you guys enjoyed that race, hit that follow button. Of course, head on over to our YouTube channel because there is going to be the full replay in all of its glory, as well as the condensed highlights out tomorrow. Now, what a race, Unicorn. Congratulations to everybody. It was Gadwin, Wisp, Maxim, the Canadian in 6th from 3rd. You hate to see it here around home, but of course, Max Inkster in 7th, Squid in 8th. Itzamax in 9th, Dirk the Merc in 10th from 20th. Houdini from 19th to 11th. What a drive for the McLaren. Undertaker in 12th. Cotters, in 13th with Extreme in 14th. A-Lord in 15th. Little Bear in 16th. Lamp in the Ferrari 17th. Yasko in 18th here. Liam, the Canadian that took pole position, unfortunately out of this one after the violent safety car collision with Adrian, who rounds out the grid in 20th position.
Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. It's not all bad for the Canadian home fans. Maxime B picking up 6th place and fastest lap as well. So something for the home crowd to take place. But Kai Bacchini definitely deserving of the Driver of the Day award. The game's just awarded him 17th to 1st. Really taking advantage of all that crazy stuff that happened at the start. And most of it was clean overtaking, just brilliant racing up and down the grid. Like you said, definitely one of the highlights of the season. So many drivers with huge positional gains and just an excellent race all around.
It was an absolute fantastic race. Of course, guys, if you enjoyed that one, we'd love to know. Let us know what you thought about that one in the chat. Of course, in just 45 minutes time, we're going to be going around Gilles Villeneuve once again for the Tier 1 racing grid. And joining me for that will be Mikau. And that is going to be something to see, and it's going to be hard to top what we just saw here. But I think that the Tier 1 guys, might have an opportunity to do so. And I would love to see some rain. Can we get some rain? But of course, guys, if you enjoyed, hit that follow button. We're going to rate a member of the community real quick. We're going to be back live in just about 40 minutes time for Tier 1 action. We hope to see you then. And of course, Kai Bacchini, the race winner, as we're just about to wrap up with the raid. Congratulations to Mr. Kai once again. Great win from you. Great drive. Very clean drive, and very happy to see you on the top step once again. Of course, guys, we're going to rate a member of the community, so feel free to pile on in. And after that, of course, feel free to hang back and join us in another 40 minutes for Tier 1 racing. My name's Strifium, and joining me today was Unicorn. Any last statements, Unicorn, before we head things off?
I think we've said it all. It was absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to see more Canada, you know? It's such a great track, and I know you love it. I love it. Obviously, a little bit less passionate on my behalf, but yeah, great race, guys.
Yeah, that was a fantastic one. Another big shout out. Thanks to Max Inkster with the raid as well. Greatly appreciate that, guys. As we're gonna jump on and raid now, let's take a look. Who would you in the chat like us to raid? Let's see who's available. Let's see who's available to raid here. Let's see who we got. Any F1 content creators live? Anyone that you guys would like us to hit up on the raid today from the Tier 2 race? Let's take a look here. Let's see. Oh, I see a suggestion in the chat there for Mr. Lamp. Let's see if he is live.